All right, let's get right into it. We're about to take a grand tour inside one of the most incredible, bustling cities you could ever imagine. A city that exists, well, trillions of times over, inside of you. We are talking about the cell, the fundamental unit of all life.
So here's the game plan for our tour. First, we'll see how cells were even discovered. Then, we'll check out the border security, pop into the main control center, tour the factory floor where everything gets made, and finally, see how this whole city is powered and kept clean.
So where did this whole idea of a cell even start? Well, our journey begins not in some high-tech lab, but way, way back in the 17th century with a really curious guy and, believe it or not, a simple piece of cork. And what's so cool about this is where the name came from. Back in 1665, Robert Hooke was looking at cork under his microscope, and he saw all these tiny box-like structures. You know what they reminded him of? The small rooms that monks lived in, so he called them cells, from the Latin word cellula, which literally just means a little room. And obviously, the name stuck. From that one simple observation, our understanding just exploded into what we now call the modern cell theory. And these two core ideas you see here, they are absolutely huge. Think about it. Every single living thing, from a tiny amoeba to a giant blue whale, is made of cells. And every cell in your body right now is a direct descendant of another cell, stretching back in a totally unbroken chain of life.
Now, not all cells are created equal. They basically fall into two great empires. On one side, you've got the simple ones, the prokaryotes. Think bacteria. They're small, and their DNA just kind of floats around. But on the other side, you have the eukaryotes, and that's us. Plants, fungi, animals, we're eukaryotes. We have a nucleus to protect our DNA and a whole bunch of specialized compartments called organelles. Our tour today is going to focus on this more complex eukaryotic city.
Let's start our tour right at the edge of the city and see how it controls its borders. I mean, every cell has to interact with its environment, but it can't just let anything wander in or out. So, who are the gatekeepers?
Okay, the main gatekeeper is the plasma membrane. You can think of it like a smart fence or maybe a really strict club bouncer. The key term here is selectively permeable, which is just a fancy way of saying it's super picky. It lets in the good stuff, like nutrients, and kicks out the bad stuff, like waste. It's all about keeping everything inside the cell perfectly balanced, a state we call homeostasis.
And one of the most important jobs that membrane has is managing osmosis. This is all about the movement of water. You see, water is absolutely essential for life, and it's always moving across the membrane to try and balance things out. It naturally flows from where there's a lot of it to where there's less of it. Simple as that. And this is a perfect way to see it in action. You can even do this at home. If you take an egg and dissolve the shell, or just grab some dried up raisins and you put them in a glass of water, they swell up. That's pure osmosis. There's less water inside the egg or the raisin than in the glass, so the water rushes in to balance things out. It's a perfect visual for how cells manage water.
But for some cells, there's an extra layer of security. Plant cells, for example, have this tough, rigid cell wall right outside the plasma membrane. Now, this isn't a picky bouncer. It's more like a fortress. It provides strength and protection, and it's the reason plants can stand up straight and don't just burst when they're full of water.
All right, we've made it past border security. Let's head deeper inside to the city's command center. The big question is, who's in charge here?
Well, meet the boss, the nucleus. This big organelle you see here is basically the brain of the whole operation. It's protected by a double-layered membrane that has these little pores that act like guarded gates, and inside it holds the cell's most precious cargo, the DNA. This is the master blueprint for everything the cell is and everything it does.
So let's peek inside. That DNA is packed super neatly into structures called chromosomes. And specific little sections of that DNA, called genes, those are the actual instructions for building everything. Oh, and you see that dark spot? That's the nucleolus. Think of it as a factory within a factory that builds the cell's protein-making machines.
So, now that we have the instructions from the nucleus, it's time to see where the real work happens. Welcome to the industrial heart of the cell, a super busy assembly line of organelles that build, process, and ship out everything the cell needs. This whole operation kicks off with ribosomes. These are the tiny construction crews of the cell. They read the instructions sent out from the nucleus and start assembling proteins, which are the fundamental building blocks for just about everything. You can find them floating around freely or attached to other, bigger organelles.
And a lot of those ribosomes work right on the surface of this massive network called the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER for short. The parts with ribosomes are called the rough ER. That's a major hub for folding and modifying proteins. The parts without are the smooth ER, which specializes in making lipids and detoxifying nasty substances. It's a true multi-purpose cellular highway. From the ER, proteins and lipids get shipped over to the Golgi apparatus. Now this is the cell's post office, or maybe its shipping department. The Golgi receives the molecules, puts the finishing touches on them, sorts them, and then packages them into little bubbles called vesicles so they can be delivered to their final destination.
So let's just trace that journey one more time. The nucleus sends out the order, a ribosome on the rough ER builds the protein, the ER folds it up and sends it on its way. Then the Golgi apparatus receives it, packages it perfectly, and ships it out. It's just a beautifully coordinated, high-efficiency assembly line.
Okay, our tour is almost done, but no city can run without its essential services. So let's visit the organelles that handle the power grid, the sanitation department, and the city's warehouses. And here it is, the legend itself, the powerhouse of the cell, the mitochondrion. These are the power plants. They take fuel, like sugar, and convert it into something called ATP, which is the universal energy currency for the cell. Everything a cell does is powered by ATP. And get this, mitochondria actually have their own separate DNA, which is a huge clue that they were once free-living organisms billions of years ago. You know, every busy city produces trash, and the cell is no different. That's where lysosomes come in. These are the recycling and waste disposal crews. They are basically little bags filled with powerful digestive enzymes that break down old, worn-out parts, junk, and even invading bacteria. They are absolutely crucial for keeping the cell clean and running smoothly. And finally, we've got the vacuoles, the cell's storage units. In animal cells, they're usually small, kind of like temporary lockers. But in plant cells, there's a gigantic central vacuole that can take up most of the cell's space. It stores water, nutrients, and waste, and the pressure it creates helps keep the plant cell nice and firm.
So, looking at these side by side, let's quickly recap the big differences. On the left is our basic animal cell model. But the plant cell on the right has three special things we didn't see in the animal cell. That rigid outer cell wall for support, that huge central vacuole for water storage, and those green chloroplasts, which are what plants use for photosynthesis.
We've just taken this whirlwind tour of an unbelievably complex and organized world, all happening on a scale that's too small to even see. It really just leaves you with this one final mind-bending thought. If just one of these little rooms is a bustling city with such intricate machinery, what does that say about the massive, coordinated society of trillions of them, all working together in perfect harmony inside you at this very moment?